The day I died, my husband of 5 years was celebrating the birthday of his first love. Laughter echoed in the private room until a phone call shattered the party atmosphere. "Mr. Miller, please come to the hospital. Your wife is dead." At that moment, the man was drunk and belligerent. "She's dead? Who cares?" With one arm around his first love's slender waist and a glass in his hand, he hung up impatiently. It wasn't until the funeral that Ethan Miller finally realized I was truly gone. Watching my cold body being lifted into the coffin, his legs suddenly went weak. He stumbled forward, wanting to stop them. "Sarah, how dare you die without my permission?" But only silent stillness answered him. After my death, I became a wandering spirit drifting through the world, watching Ethan Miller, who had once treated me like air, slowly lose his mind. Yet, I felt no attachment whatsoever. One night temptation late at night, in the bedroom of a mansion in Capital City. Cupping the man's handsome face, my eyes hazy with desire, I used every ounce of charm I possessed. Ethan Miller finally agreed to stay the night in my room. For 5 years of marriage, we had slept in separate rooms. No one knew how I had endured those years, despised even by the husband closest to me. It felt like no one in the world cared about me. Perhaps enticed by my initiative, Ethan Miller leaned in to kiss me. His hot breath rained down, as if years of unmet desire were about to consume me whole, taking greedily. His grip on my shoulder was so strong it left red marks, but I felt no pain. I only wished he would hold me tighter. It seemed only then could I feel any semblance of his affection. My gaze never left his exceptionally handsome face. No matter how many years passed, I would still be captivated by the sight of him. Consumed by passion, Ethan Miller's Adam's apple bobbed violently. His voice turned slightly hoarse, sweat beaded on his forehead, and his breathing became rapid and uneven. Though he didn't want to admit it, looking at the woman's beautiful face unleashed a torrent of primal instinct within him. He couldn't stop himself from wanting Sarah. Her skin was fair, her figure slender, yet curves were abundant where they mattered. A pair of soft arms wrapped around his neck, her eyes burning with desire, her red lips, actively engaging him. He was a man, after all, with a beautiful wife at home. He couldn't remain indifferent forever, even if he had never loved her. "Ethan, honey, will you take me?" My voice, a mere whisper of a few ordinary words, fell into Ethan Miller's ears and instantly disarmed him. His eyes turned crimson at the edges, and a flicker of emotion finally disturbed his usually calm gaze. "You asked for this." With that, he held back no longer. His thin lips covered mine again, burning hot. An ambiguous atmosphere hung in the air. However, a sudden phone ringing broke the spell. The phone kept ringing. "Ethan, please don't answer it." I held him tight, not wanting him to take the call. But Ethan Miller pulled away instantly, rising from the bed without a second thought. He grabbed the phone that wouldn't stop ringing from the bedside table and answered it. I watched him take the call. A woman's anxious voice came through. "Ethan, didn't you say you'd pick me up from the airport? I can't find you anywhere. I'm here alone at the airport, I'm so scared." "Jessica, don't worry. I'm sorry, I was so busy with work, I forgot. I'm coming to pick you up right now. Wait for me." Ethan Miller's voice was apologetic, the husky, sexy tone from moments ago making it sound as if the woman on the other end of the phone was his wife. "Jessica." I murmured the name to myself. Wasn't this Ethan Miller's first love, the one he had longed for all these years, his first love? Why was she calling him now? My heart instantly felt hollow. The surging, passionate emotions were extinguished as if by ice water. It was hard to imagine that the man who had just been entangled with me was now showing such unprecedented tenderness to another woman. My heart felt as though it was being torn apart. Was it true that in Ethan Miller's eyes, I would never measure up to his first love? After he hung up the phone, I watched the man get out of bed and get dressed. On his neck were the hickeys from our recent intimacy. I didn't want him to leave. I crawled to the foot of the bed and wrapped my arms around him. "Ethan, please don't go." Ethan Miller's voice was cold. "Sarah, are you ordering me around?" His words were laced with extreme sarcasm. He then yanked my hands away, nearly sending me crashing to the floor. Without a hint of pity, he walked straight out of the room. The room, which had been warm moments before, quickly returned to cold silence. Watching my husband abandon me late at night for another woman, I grabbed a coat without thinking and chased after him. In the stairwell, I begged him again not to leave. "Ethan, please don't go. Today is our 5th wedding anniversary." My expression and voice were utterly humble, my eyes glistening with unshed tears. I knew from the beginning that Ethan Miller didn't love me, that he was cold to the core. Yet, I still loved him deeply, yearning for his briefest moment of pity. Hearing fifth wedding anniversary, Ethan Miller's gaze darkened for a moment, but he quickly resumed his indifferent expression. Just an anniversary? Is that worth getting so worked up over? Don't forget how you used deceit to force me to marry you in the first place. You should be grateful I even let you stay on as Mrs. Miller. As for anything else, you have no right to demand it. Sarah, don't be so narcissistic. Don't think I would ever fall for you. Everything you've done is disgusting. The tears welling up in my eyes blurred my vision. My last shred of hope was crushed. I had drugged him to force intimacy, gotten pregnant, and forced him to marry me. I had thought that if I just married him, I would find happiness. I believed that if I nurtured the marriage with care, even if Ethan Miller was a block of ice or a stone, I could melt him. Perhaps I loved him too deeply, which had blinded me. But after 5 years of marriage, he still detested me to this extreme. Ethan Miller. If you hate me so much, why did you just, with me? How dare you even ask? If you hadn't seduced me, do you think I would have touched you? Sarah, 5 years later, are you still so scheming? Ethan Miller's handsome thin lips opened and closed, speaking words that pierced my heart. I never imagined he saw me in such a terrible light. I choked back a sob and asked, Ethan Miller, have you never loved me? The man looked down at me, tears streaming down my face. A hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. Someone as scheming as you, who would do anything for your own gain, so calculating, and you dream of earning my love? In your dreams. I was utterly wronged. My empty eyes blinked, but I still clung to that last bit of hope, humbly pleading, Ethan, I was wrong before, but tonight is our wedding anniversary. Just stay with me, okay? Ethan Miller raised his hand. $1 million Rolex watch adorned his veined wrist. Effortlessly, he pinched my chin. He leaned in and scoffed, do you really think you're in a position to demand anything from me? Sarah, the moment you dared to plot against me, you should have expected this day. His voice was a harsh warning, devoid of any warmth. I was terrified by the look in his eyes, my breathing ragged, my voice choked with sobs. But no matter how I tried to explain, Ethan Miller wouldn't believe me. He only thought I was making excuses. He turned and walked away without looking back. I stumbled trying to stop him, falling to the ground with a heavy thud. The impact on my hip was agony. Zing. I cried out in pain, but the man offered not a shred of pity. To the first love appears enduring the pain. I stood up and chased after his cold figure. I wrapped my arms around him from behind. His back was broad and warm. Even after his harsh words, I couldn't bring myself to feel angry. Ethan, I love you so much. Please don't go? The next second, he pushed me away ruthlessly. The force sent me crashing against the nearby railing. My stomach, already uneasy, churned violently. Seeing my pathetic state, a flicker of concern appeared in Ethan Miller's eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. Don't act pitiful. Do you think I'll feel sorry for you? Perhaps the commotion from their argument was too loud, because Leo Miller, who was sleeping in his room, came out. The little boy, carved from jade, rubbed his sleepy eyes. Seeing his mother fallen on the ground, he immediately dropped the teddy bear he was holding and ran to stand in front of her. Daddy, why are you bullying Mommy? His small body held a surprising amount of strength. His clear eyes glared fixedly at the man who bore a 7 or 8 tenths resemblance to him. Why? Because she's not a good mother. A crooked upper beam makes a crooked lower beam. If you keep being taught by a scheming woman like this, you'll be ruined sooner or later. Although he hated Sarah, his son was innocent. A moment later, Leo Miller lifted his pink face, hands on his hips, glaring angrily. Mommy isn't like that at all. In my heart, she's the best, no one can compare. It's you, Daddy, who's always making fun of Mommy. The man pressed his lips together, his eyes growing colder. Looking at the small figure in front of me, I didn't want Leo to get involved. Ethan Miller's temper was not to be trifled with. I urged him, Leo, go back to bed quickly. This doesn't concern you. Mommy and Daddy were just playing. How could Daddy bully Mommy? But Leo Miller stood his ground. Daddy, today is you. Our and Mommy's 5th wedding anniversary. She's been looking forward to it all day. Are you going to abandon her tonight to see some other woman? Sarah, this is the good son you've raised. He even dares to threaten me. Seeing his son defend that wicked woman, Sarah, made Ethan Miller furious. So what if it's our wedding anniversary? She plotted against me, got into my bed, and got pregnant with you, forcing me to marry her. She should have expected this day. Jessica is the only one I love. She should just give up now. I sat slumped on the floor, listening to Ethan Miller belittle me. My heart ached as if being stabbed. In that moment, I finally realized that Ethan Miller had never loved me. This marriage was something I had forced. A tear of regret fell from my eye. But why did he have to say all this in front of Leo? Leo Miller could never have imagined that in his father's eyes, his mother was so worthless. In truth, he had always known that his father didn't love his mother, and didn't like him either. He had seen his mother hiding in her room crying several times. Furious, he couldn't tolerate him insulting his mother like this. His small body charged towards Ethan Miller, swinging his little fists, but his height only allowed him to hit the man's thigh. The next second, Ethan Miller grabbed him and lifted him onto his shoulder. "You little brat. I gave you an inch and you took a mile. If you keep being disrespectful, don't blame me for hitting you." "Ethan, let go of Leo. He's still little, he doesn't understand. Don't scare him." Seeing the situation, I cried out, begging him to release his hold. Leo Miller struggled, his little face full of grievance, his small fists still flailing. "Let go of me. Daddy's a big meanie. He not only bullies mommy, he wants to hit me too. I'm going to tell Grandpa Arthur. If you dare curse at me again, I'll send you straight back to the family estate, and you'll never see your mother again." Leo Mill. R's cursing stopped abruptly. He wasn't afraid of anything except being separated from his mother. His father had used this threat against him countless times. He was his son after all. Ethan Miller sighed and let him go. "It's getting late. Go back to your room and sleep. You have school tomorrow. If this happens again, I really will send you back to the family estate to be raised." Ethan Miller's warning clearly worked. "Daddy, please don't send me away. I'll be good and listen from now on." A hint of pity flickered in the man's eyes as he patted his head. After Ethan Miller left, I rushed forward and hugged my son's thin body. Seeing him cry sadly, my heart ached terribly. "Leo, I'm sorry. Mommy isn't capable enough to protect you. In this house, I had no say. Even if Ethan Miller decided to take the child and send Leo back to the family estate one day, I had no right to stop him." Leo Miller lovingly wiped away his mother's tears. "Mommy, don't cry. Leo will always stay with you." Mother and son clung to each other in the deep night, tears blurring both their eyes. Meanwhile, the sound of a Rolls-Royce starting came from outside the door. I knew he was truly gone, on our wedding anniversary, leaving me to go see another woman. The sound of the car faded until it was gone without a trace. In that moment, I finally understood that it had always been my one-sided wishful thinking. Some dreams needed to end. 5 years in limbo after putting my son to bed, I stood by the mansion door waiting for Ethan Miller to come home. Martha, the housekeeper, came over and draped a coat over me. "Mrs. Miller, please come inside and wait. It's snowing heavily outside, I'm afraid you'll catch a cold." Noticing the coat on my shoulders, I glanced at Martha beside me, her eyes full of concern. "It's all right, I'll wait a little longer. Martha, please go inside and rest." Seeing that her persuasion was useless, Martha sighed and turned back into the mansion. I waited until midnight, my fair cheeks red from the cold. Every message I sent on my phone disappeared into the void, with no response. Dawn broke silently. My heart finally died, and I turned back inside. 5 years ago, I had gone to great lengths to get into his bed, gotten pregnant with his child, and forced him to marry me. But sadly, even with such tactics, I had become Mrs. Miller but could never win his heart. He had neglected me for 5 years of our marriage. It was remarkable that I had managed to endure such a marriage. In the following period, I barely saw Ethan Miller. He left early and came back late every day. His first love had returned to the country, and they could rekindle their relationship. I was completely cast aside. The mansion felt increasingly empty, but I had grown used to this way of life. Besides picking up and dropping off Leo from kindergarten and helping him with homework, I started telling myself that it was time to let go. Someone who doesn't love you will never give you a second glance. Before, driven by selfish desire, I had put something in Ethan Miller's drink, a substance meant to arouse a man's desire. Sure enough, after drinking that glass, he became hot and restless, and I was the only one nearby. I got my wish and slept with him. That night, he pinned me down, tossing and turning. But in his feverish state, he called out another woman's name, his first love. I could only deceive myself, holding him tighter, getting swept away by the heat of the moment, absorbing his body heat. When he woke up, Ethan Miller grabbed my neck and demanded coldly, "Sarah, you dared to drug me?" My neck quickly bruised. I struggled to force out a reply, "Ethan, it was my fault. I'm sorry. You think this will make me yours?" "Never." His strong, bony hand tightened, almost breaking my neck. Finally, he let go in disgust. Before leaving, he only said, "In this life, I will never be with a scheming woman like you." Later, B. Because of that one instance of drugging him and getting into his bed, I got pregnant with Ethan Miller's child. By the time I found out, I was already a month and a half along. When I showed him the lab report, he showed no emotion. Don't think that just because you have my child, I'll marry you. If my child is born by a woman with such twisted intentions, I would only feel disgusted. With that, he dragged my hand to the OB/GYN department of the hospital without a word, forcing me to abort the child. I pleaded with him bitterly, Ethan, I'm sorry, it was all my fault, but this child is innocent. Please let me have the baby? But no matter how I begged, Ethan Miller seemed to have made up his mind. I gradually became numb, my tears having dried up. I touched my flat abdomen, my heart aching intensely. I whispered to myself, baby, mommy is sorry. You shouldn't have come into this world. Please be born into a better family next time. Looking at the girl's weak and fragile appearance, Ethan Miller showed no emotion. Sarah, the moment you got into my bed, you should have expected this day. Just then, the surgery time arrived. My fear reached its peak. At the critical moment, a group of people rushed in. The child in Sarah's belly cannot be removed. It was Ethan Miller's grandfather. He leaned on his cane, his face full of anger, and ordered his bodyguards to stop me just as I was about to enter the operating room. He also told me, Sarah, with me here, Ethan won't dare do anything to you. Then he glared fiercely at his grandson, whom he had always been proud of. You little brat. Who gave you permission to abort our Miller family's bloodline on your own? Ethan Miller hadn't expected his grandfather to arrive at that moment. He explained helplessly, Grandpa Arthur, do you know how this child came about? This woman has ill intentions, she actually dared to plot against me and drug me. Even if she's pregnant, this child can't stay. Pa Miller was so angry he hit his grandson's back with his cane. You little brat, what nonsense are you spouting? This child cannot be aborted, period. If you dare disobey me, don't call me Grandpa Arthur anymore. Grandpa Arthur. Ethan Miller felt a lump in his throat, unable to vent his frustration. Looking at Sarah, who was still shaken, he said coldly, you have quite the ability. You managed to get Grandpa Arthur on your side. I looked bewildered, having no idea what was happening. I didn't know Grandpa Arthur would come. I shook my head like a rattle, my eyes, as clear as a phoenix tree, showing a hint of innocence. You think I'll believe you? Meeting Ethan Miller's chilling, icy gaze, my heart clenched painfully. You little brat, stop scaring Sarah. She really didn't know. I sent someone to follow her and found out she was pregnant. Grandpa Miller patted my shoulder, offering comfort. Child, don't be afraid. With me here, this kid won't be able to do anything to you and your child. Because Grandpa Arthur intervened, Ethan Miller ultimately couldn't break ties with me. He was even forced to marry me. From then on, I, an unknown orphan, became the Mrs. Miller of the Miller family. The wedding was grand, inviting all the prominent figures in Capital City. Everyone envied me for marrying into the Miller family, like a wild chicken becoming a phoenix, a blessing from lifetimes of good karma. But only I knew that I had obtained the status of Mrs. Miller through dishonorable means. I still remember on the wedding day, Ethan Miller didn't smile once. He even warned me, Sarah, you went to such lengths to marry into the Miller family. With Grandpa Arthur protecting you, I really can't do anything to you. But remember one thing, I can only give you the status of Mrs. Miller. Nothing else. I had always known that Ethan Miller married me only because he was pressured by Grandpa Arthur, but hearing those words still brought unbearable pain. That night, I was left alone in the empty bridal room, while my new husband was out carousing with his friends. I cried until my tears ran dry, but Ethan Miller never came home. For abandoned in the cold, this kind of life continued for 5 years. Ethan Miller didn't like me, and he didn't like the son I bore either. Since Leo was born, Ethan Miller hadn't even held him once, and he had never attended a single parent-teacher conference at the kindergarten. I knew his heart only belonged to his first love, the one he had cherished for years. I heard that the woman was Ethan Miller's first love, and they had been together for 3 years. Because she wanted to pursue her dreams, she resolutely went abroad, leaving Ethan Miller despondent for a long time. And that's when I met him and fell desperately in love with him. But unrequited love, after all, couldn't compete with the power of a first love. Thinking of this, I felt a stinging wetness in my eyes, suppressing the urge to let tears fall. Martha had worked here for many years and was accustomed to the way the young master treated the young mistress. She also sympathized with the young mistress's plight. The young mistress was clearly so beautiful, like a fairy, with a good personality, and was deeply in love with the young master. She didn't know what the young master was dissatisfied with, always staying out. And the young master was smart and handsome, only 5 years old but already familiar with classic literature and able to converse fluently in English. It was a pity to not cherish such a good family. She watched it all, her heart aching. Mrs. Miller, why don't you try having another child with the young master? Maybe the house is too lonely. Another child might make the young master settle down. Hearing Martha's suggestion, I sighed helplessly, finding it ironic. Have another child? How could I? Ethan Miller didn't like me, didn't even want to touch me. How could I get pregnant? Besides, a child who wasn't wanted would only be a mistake. Leo was the best example. His birth was a mistake. How could I repeat that mistake and bring another child into the world who wasn't loved by his father? 5 terminal illness strikes. Waking up in the morning, I went to the bathroom to wash up. Suddenly, my stomach ached, and I gagged for a while but didn't throw up anything. Lately, my health had been deteriorating. I was constantly fatigued, unable to eat or sleep. In the bathroom, I coughed up blood again. The sink was stained bright red with blood, a shocking sight. Doctor's office at the hospital. The doctor looked at the lab report on the desk, his expression grim. Doctor, what illness do I have? I clenched my hands, my eyebrows furrowed, feeling a sense of foreboding. A moment later, the doctor looked up from the report. He shook his head regretfully, looking at the young woman in the prime of her life. Sarah, is it? The report shows that you have stomach cancer, and it's already in the late stage. Doctor, what did you say? My eyes widened, and I was completely stunned. All the strength drained from my body, and I nearly collapsed. How could this be? I was only 27. How could I have cancer? I grabbed the doctor's hand, my voice trembling. Doctor, is there a mistake? I'm still so young, how could I? The doctor seemed used to such scenes and remained calm. There's no mistake. Given your current condition, you have at most 3 months left. I didn't know how I walked out of the hospital. The sky, which had been clear moments before, suddenly became overcast, as if predicting the impending end of my life. 3 months. I had never imagined I would get such a serious illness. I stood outside the hospital, my eyes vacant, my legs feeling like they were weighed down by 1,000 pounds of stone. I was already unworthy of someone like Ethan Miller, who was the darling of heaven. Now that I was sick, I would only be a burden to him. His future was supposed to be happy and bright. Marrying me, he must have been in agony all these years. Perhaps only my death could put an end to this mistake. But I didn't want to die. Leo was only 5 years old, he couldn't lose his mother. God, he already lacked a father's love, how could you be so cruel as to take his mother away too? I went to Leo's kindergarten. It was dismissal time. Leo Miller was both surprised and excited to see his mother picking him up instead of Robert the driver. His face lit up, and he immediately ran towards me. Mommy, why are you here to pick me up? Where's Robert? I didn't want to lose composure in front of my son. I smiled slightly and explained, Robert was busy today. Isn't it good that Mommy is here to pick you up? Of course it is. Leo Miller's face, like carved jade, was beaming with innocent joy. But the more I looked, the more my heart ached. In 3 months, would I no longer see Leo's sincere smile? Leo was still so young. If he knew I was dead, what would happen to him? I couldn't predict the future and almost broke down in front of my son. Mommy, why are you crying? A pair of small, chubby hands struggled to reach up, trying to wipe away my tears. I quickly wiped my eyes, not wanting Leo to notice. Mommy is fine. Just some sand got into my eyes. Then Mommy, squat down, and I'll blow on them for you. I smiled and squatted down. My son's small mouth blew warm air, but it couldn't alleviate the heavy ache in my heart as time slipped away. Sixth arrival appears that evening. Ethan Miller came home early for a change. Just as I was immersing myself in the unexpected joy, I noticed he had brought someone back with him. The woman was tall, with an exquisite appearance, and the love in her eyes for Ethan Miller was undeniable. I had seen her photo before. She was Ethan Miller's first love, the one he had cherished for so long. Seeing her appear before me, I was completely stunned. I had never imagined Ethan Miller would bring her back to our home. Jessica Adams swayed her graceful hips and spoke sweetly. Ethan, is this your wife, Sarah? She's truly beautiful. Beautiful, yes, but too manipulative, Ethan Miller said dismissively. Being so openly mocked in front of his first love, my face fell. I took a deep breath and mustered the courage to ask, Ethan Miller, why did you bring her back? Jessica just returned from abroad and doesn't have a place to stay. I just let her stay here for a few days, he said matter-of-factly, his face impassive. It was as if he didn't care whether his wife minded or not. That's right, Sarah. You wouldn't mind, would you? I'll only stay for a few days until I find a place to move out. Jessica Adams knew that Ethan Miller had only married this woman because she was pregnant with his child, and he was forced into it by his grandfather. But he had left her alone night after they were married. He clearly didn't love her and would divorce her sooner or later. Her decision to go abroad and pursue her dreams had meant giving up Ethan Miller, a pain she would always carry. Now that she was back, she intended to reclaim everything that belonged to her. The position of Mrs. Miller should be hers. Just then, my son, Leo Miller, rushed over and hugged my leg. He pointed at the strange woman and questioned Ethan Miller. "Daddy, who is that woman?" I was embraced by my son, not having expected him to witness this scene. "Ethan, this must be your son. He looks a lot like you," Jessica Adams said, praising him with kind words, but her heart was filled with jealousy. If she hadn't gone abroad back then, this woman wouldn't have been able to take advantage of the situation. "Leo, go back to your room first. Mommy needs to talk to Daddy." "I won't go back. Mommy, that woman is a vixen trying to steal Daddy. Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. They won't bully you." Although he was young, he wasn't stupid. He had heard Robert the driver say that Daddy's first love had returned. This must be her. If even he didn't stand by Mommy, she would truly be alone. Ethan Miller was enraged by this. This kid did nothing but oppose him. "Leo Miller, what nonsense are you talking about? This is Jessica. She's Daddy's friend and just returned a few days ago." "What vixen? Who taught you words like that?" He looked towards the silent bedroom. "Was it your mother who taught you to say these things?" "It has nothing to do with Mommy." Leo Miller wouldn't tolerate his mother being slandered. His delicate features were contorted with anger, and he yelled, "Mean woman, get out of my house. You're not welcome here." "Ethan." Jessica Adams looked troubled and leaned on Ethan, complaining inwardly that this little brat was truly annoying. Despite her anger, she had to keep up appearances. Pushing too hard would be counterproductive. "Ethan, don't make it difficult for Sarah. If she doesn't welcome me, then forget it. I'll just go back to the hotel." Looking at her pitiful appearance, Ethan Miller's face was full of heartache. "Jessica, you've been truly wronged. I'll make it up to you properly later." Jessica Adams shot me a triumphant look, a hint of disdain on her lips. I watched my husband speak tenderly to another woman, completely ignoring me. My eyes burned with unshed tears. The desolation in my heart grew stronger. "Ethan Miller, what do you see me as?" This marriage seemed to have reached its end. There was no point in continuing. In 3 months, I would likely be gone. I doubted he would shed a single tear for me. The only one I couldn't bear to leave was Leo. He was still so young and would soon lose his mother. "Leo, do you want to sleep with Mommy tonight?" I held my soft little son, my eyes as gentle as lake water. The mischievous little guy readily agreed, "Okay." I smiled. Since I couldn't change anything, in the time I'd left, I only wanted to spend it well with Leo. I wouldn't wish for anything else. 7 Liberation through divorce. A few days later, I intercepted Ethan Miller before he left for work, blocking the door. It felt like it took all my strength to squeeze out the words, "Ethan, let's get a divorce." Ethan Miller seemed shocked by what he heard, thinking I was just playing games. He grabbed my hand, tightening his grip. "What game are you playing now?" I endured the pain in my wrist and explained, "I'm serious." I then pulled out divorce papers, with all the terms already drawn up. I didn't want a penny from him, I just wanted to end this marriage as quickly as possible. "Ethan, just sign it. The terms are all laid out." Looking at the contents of the divorce papers, the man's brow furrowed deeply. "Do you know what you're saying? You want a divorce this badly?" "Yes. I used unconventional means to force you to marry me in the first place. This marriage was a mistake from the start. It's time for it to end. There's no point in continuing, it will only deepen our mutual pain." Having spoken my mind, I felt a sense of relief. Ethan Miller stared at my earnest face and scoffed, "Sarah, there's a limit to your jokes. You think I'm joking?" I forced a smile. "True, I once loved you to the point of madness, but even the deepest love can fade. These past few years, I've suffered for 5 years because of that one misguided decision, and I brought Leo into this world, making his birth a mistake. It wasn't until today that I truly understood that one-sided affection will always reach its end. I've come to my senses. Don't worry, I won't cling to you. Isn't this what you've always wanted? What is there to hesitate about? Sign it." I handed him the divorce papers. But he didn't take them. Ethan Miller's prominent jawline tightened slightly. He glanced down at the agreement, then heard me add, "Don't worry, I won't take any of your property. Even if I did, I wouldn't have time to spend it. In just over 2 months, I would be dead." How considerate of you, Ethan Miller said. He hadn't expected me to agree to leaving with nothing. Divorce from me was something he had always wanted. Ending this painful marriage should have been a joyous occasion for him. But why did his heart ache in painful spasms? He grabbed my hand again, grinding his teeth, almost yelling as he asked, "You want a divorce this badly?" My wrist throbbed from the man's grip, and my beautiful features twisted in pain. "It hurts, let go." Hearing me cry out in pain, Ethan Miller finally released my hand. He stared at my stubborn, cold face, restraining his temper. "Fine. If you want a divorce this badly, I'll grant your wish." Immediately, he signed his name on the divorce papers without another word. After signing, he asked, "What about Leo?" I had already thought about Leo. I had stomach cancer and wouldn't live much longer. If I took Leo with me, I certainly couldn't give him a good life. Although Ethan Miller didn't love me, Leo was his son, and he wouldn't neglect him. My divorce from you doesn't mean I won't remarry in the future. If I take my son and remarry, I'm afraid Leo might be mistreated. So, I'll leave my son with you, and I'll leave this house alone. No one knew the heartache with which I said those words. Ethan Miller hadn't expected me to give up custody of my son. "Sarah, you are truly heartless. You're willing to give up custody of your son to make it easier to remarry later. I thought you were just shameless, but you're actually malicious?" His gaze towards me was full of sarcasm. I didn't want to explain the reason to him. "Think whatever you want. But Leo is your biological son. I hope that after we divorce, you'll take good care of him. Son, if you marry someone else in the future and have new children, please treat Leo the same. Don't let him feel like he's treated differently. In this world, Leo was the only one I cared about." Ethan Miller thought I was just being theatrical. "If you care about Leo so much, why aren't you fighting for custody?" I didn't know how to argue. If I could, what mother would abandon her own son? "Just admit you're selfish. Don't try to make yourself sound noble." The coldness in his eyes intensified. "I don't care what you think." Having grown used to the man's cold words, I didn't feel particularly sad. Perhaps my love had simply run out. There's one more thing I want to ask you." Ethan Miller had lost his patience. "Spit it out. Can you keep this from Leo for now? I'm afraid he can't handle it." "Ethan Miller, we're getting a divorce. How long do you think you can hide something like this?" "As long as possible. Just tell him I'm going away on a trip for a while. Tell him when you can't hide it anymore." At the very least, I didn't want Leo to see me sick and dying. After all, we had been married for 5 years. Even without love, there was family affection. "Fine, I'll keep it from him for now." With that, Ethan Miller tossed the divorce papers into my lap, barely glancing at them, and walked straight out of the mansion. As I watched his retreating back, my heart ached. This time, it was truly over. 8 soul departed the day I left the mansion was a snowy one. Snow fell heavily outside as I dragged my suitcase, leaving the home I had lived in for 5 years. Some time ago, because Ethan Miller's parents missed him, they had him come stay at their place, and Martha had gone with him to look after him. I didn't have to say goodbye to my son. Perhaps the heavens were pitying me. That evening, Ethan Miller returned home and found my bedroom empty. He saw that I had taken everything: clothes, shoes. He walked to the bed, picked up the pillow I used to sleep on, and gently sniffed it. The faint scent of my shampoo lingered. For a moment, he thought I hadn't left, that it was a dream. He hadn't expected me to leave just like that, without a trace of hesitation. "Sarah, was your love for me so fragile that you could cut it off so easily?" A wave of frustration washed over him. Yet, he should have been indifferent, but his heart felt strangely empty. 3 months later, a high-end bar in Capital City. Ethan Miller was celebrating his first love's birthday. Jessica Adams watched the handsome man singing "Happy Birthday" to her, her heart fluttering. She had heard that Ethan was divorced from that woman, Sarah. It seemed fate was giving her a chance. The position of Mrs. Miller had always belonged to her. What some people gained through shameful means would eventually have to be returned. A group of people celebrated late into the night. Empty bottles littered the table. Laughter echoed in the private room. Someone joked, "Ethan, you and Jessica are a perfect match. If it hadn't been for some scheming woman interfering back then, you wouldn't have married her and suffered for 5 whole years. It's good you're divorced. Some mistakes shouldn't last a lifetime." Exactly. Only our Jessica is worthy of Mr. Miller, of bearing his children. Hearing everyone's words, Jessica Adams glanced shyly at the noble and handsome man beside her. "Ethan, it was my fault back then. I shouldn't have left you to pursue my dreams. Can you forgive me?" She cast a seductive look at him, enough to melt any man. "Jessica, I never blamed you," Ethan Miller said. Hearing this, the woman's lips curved into a triumphant smile. Suddenly, a phone ringing broke the silence. Ethan Miller answered it. "Mr. Miller, please come to the hospital. Your wife is dead." At this moment, the man was drunk. He thought it was someone playing a prank. "She's dead? Who cares? Besides, we're divorced now. Her life or death has nothing to do with me." With one arm around his first love's slender waist and a wine glass in his hand, he hung up impatiently. It wasn't until the day of the funeral, Ethan Miller finally realized, belatedly, that I was truly dead. He watched my cold body being lifted into the coffin. His legs suddenly went weak, and he stumbled forward, wanting to investigate. But Mr. and Mrs. Miller cursed him, calling him a sinner. They said the dead cannot be brought back to life, and there was no need to disturb my peaceful departure. If he knew this now, why hadn't he realized it before? 5-year-old Leo Miller clung to his grandparents' legs, his eyes red from crying. "Mommy, don't leave me. Leo will be good from now on, I won't make you angry." Mr. and Mrs. Miller patted their grandson's back heartbrokenly, but they didn't know how to comfort him. "How did Sarah die?" Ethan Miller questioned the funeral attendees frantically. "She was perfectly fine when they divorced just a few months ago. How could she be dead?" Mrs. Miller wiped away her tears and explained tearfully, "Her doctor said she was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer a few months ago. To avoid burdening Leo, she kept it from everyone and even chose to get a divorce, enduring the suffering alone. No one knows how she spent her final days." How is that possible? Ethan Miller refused to believe it. "Sarah, how dare you die without my permission?" But only silent stillness answered him. After the funeral, everyone left except Ethan Miller. He couldn't bring himself to leave. Even now, he couldn't accept the fact that I was dead. And after my death, I had become a wandering spirit drifting through the world. I watched Ethan Miller collapse at my gravestone, finding it utterly ridiculous. "Sarah, you were so cruel. Why didn't you tell me you were sick earlier? Why choose to bear it alone? Did you want to get rid of me that badly?" He had treated me like trash when I was alive, and now he was putting on a show of grief? For whom? The man seemed to have had all the strength drained from him, looking years old. For a while after that, I continued to drift as a spirit around Ethan Miller. I had expected him to not grieve my death for long. At first, Ethan Miller acted no different from before, as if my departure was merely insignificant gossip in his life. As time passed, I would fade away like smoke, forgotten completely. During the day, he went to work as usual. But surprisingly, after work, he no longer went out with friends like before. It was as if he had settled down, coming home punctually. After dinner, he would spend time with his son, reading books, helping him with homework, and putting him to bed, fulfilling all his fatherly duties. After tucking Leo in, he would go to the bedroom that had once been mine. After I left, he hadn't allowed anyone to clear my things, instead having them cleaned every day. And every night, he slept in that room. As if doing so could make him believe that I was still alive in this world. Every night, I would see Ethan Miller holding my photo, staring at it for an hour at a time. His long fingers would gently trace the beautiful face in the photo, his eyes filled with belated tenderness. "Sarah, I'm sorry. You must have gone through hell these past 5 years." Crystal tears streamed down his face, his eyes filled with despairing grief. Only at that moment did he understand that he had fallen in love with Sarah a long time ago. These 5 years, he had only been deceiving himself, using excuses to numb himself. I watched him hold my photo, tears streaming down his face, but felt no emotion. Love that comes too late is worth less than dirt. Ethan Miller, I don't love you anymore. Who are you putting on this show of deep affection for? Every year on my death anniversary, Ethan Miller would kneel at my gravestone for a long time. He didn't hope to atone for his sins, he just wanted to tell me, "Sarah, in this life, you were my only wife. No one else is more important than you. Once I raise Leo and hand over tea, he company to him, I'll come join you. You won't be lonely there." Listening to his confession, I gave a sarcastic smile. Only a ghost would believe words like that. Anyone can say nice things, but how many can truly do them? Soon enough, would he forget me? Would he remember his vow? But to my surprise, Ethan Miller remained celibate all these years. His former first love had married someone else long ago, but he remained single. Until Leo completed his education and became capable of handling things on his own, he smoothly handed over the company to him, as if completing his last task. That day, the weather was sunny. Ethan Miller came to my gravestone again. Time had left some marks on his face. Compared to men his age, he looked much older, but his eyebrows still held a hint of his youth. Looking at the photo on the gravestone, his heart ached fiercely. The surroundings were desolate. The man's legs were numb from kneeling for so long. He hugged the gravestone and pressed a kiss onto it, his eyes filled with deep longing. He murmured to himself, "Sarah, I failed you in this life. If there's a next life, please don't meet me again." The next second, he pulled out a sharp dagger from somewhere and slit his own throat in front of my grave. His emaciated body fell, and a gust of wind blew, staining the grass red with blood. End of story.